Hello and welcome back to Enya's channel. Thank you so much to everybody who's left such nice feedback on our first 3 request stop videos by now. Today, as a little treat, we thought we'd give you a bit more of a personal view behind the curtain by getting to know us with a request stop Q&A.
This was my idea.
Yes, and thankfully all of the questions have come from Enya's lovely Instagram followers, so thank you everybody who was curious about this project and wanted to know a bit more about it, and obviously we enjoy yapping about the weird creative stuff that we do as well. And the first question is, how did we meet? So I'd like to hear your version of this, Enya, because I'm curious about it.
There is an event which takes place every 2 years and it's called InnoTran, and it is a big conference for everyone who's interested in train stuff, I'd say, but it's very technical. And so this time, for the first time ever, they did a rail influencer festival at this InnoTrans. Well, I didn't get invited. But someone texted me and said that there's this Railfluencer event and maybe I can join them. And so I wrote a mail saying like, well, I'm not really classified for any of these awards that they're handing out, because they were handing out awards, but I want to be there too. And so they said, okay, fine, let's just go to the Railfluencer event. And so I went there, and there was a moment where everyone was like sort of getting to know each other, and I saw Tom sitting by himself, as he always does. He was talking to a guy from the Netherlands, but this guy just left for a second. So Tom was sitting on his own, and I was like, well, I heard he was speaking English, so maybe I'll just introduce myself. And then I went over and asked him what he was doing, because actually I only knew like 2 people at the event, and the other ones I didn't get to know. And then we started talking, and it was very nice. And then we stayed in this group, like this guy from the Netherlands, Tom and I, and did this whole tour. And afterwards we talked a bit more personally, I'd say. Before we were only talking about trains, of course. And then he said that he was living in Leipzig, and I was like, well, I live close by, so maybe we can meet again in Leipzig. And I think you probably know this by now, but when I say something like this, I will do it. So, and then we met again in Leipzig. So, now your version.
Yeah, well, my same version of the story is that we went to a conference. I actually got invited.
I actually wanted to ask you about this.
I got invited, so I got a mail like 6 months before it saying, hey, do you want to come to a festival for railway influencers?
Who texted you?
One of the people from the conference. And I was like, well, this is a scam. Like, this event obviously doesn't exist. So I just didn't respond to it until I spoke to someone else I know who was also invited. And he was like, no, it's real. I was like, okay, fair enough. I should probably respond to them. And they were like, yeah, we'll cover your hotel in Berlin. Come, and you're invited. And
they didn't cover anything for me.
Yeah, you weren't invited, Enya. That's what you get.
So mean.
And yeah, I was like, fine, I'll go. To be honest, I was in England like 2 days before, and I was like, I'm not going to go. I just didn't really want to go. I was like, I don't really know what it's about, but I'm so glad that I went, because it was really interesting and the people were really nice. And yeah, so they had this thing where they were doing awards for like people who make videos about trains. The whole conference was essentially, they have all of the new trains there from all around the world. So all of the train manufacturers were presenting their new models for like the next year. There was like the Sydney trams, there was like the new Cologne S-Bahn, wasn't there? There was like Korean high-speed trains and stuff, and they were all there and you could go on them. There was like Egyptian high-speed trains and stuff, which is like an adapted ICE.
And waffles with the DB logo.
There was also waffles with
That's
the
what
DB
I
logo
was
on.
there for.
And there was like this event for people who make train YouTube videos, and so we were just sat in this room. There was like 40 of us, and I just remember, because I was skeptical about going, and then I was also late because I took the S-Bahn there, but I took like the last possible connection, and it got stuck. It got like delayed in Berlin somewhere, and I was like, so I like ran through the doors, ran all around the festival, the conference. I was like, where's this building, where's this meeting room? And people like telling me, go here, and I was like running because I was late, because it's me, classic.
Well, I checked the day before where the event was happening, because this whole area is so huge. I got lost every time I went somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't get invited, you have to take special precautions, because some of us who actually belonged there were a little bit more comfortable.
I don't feel like you really belong, but that's for another time.
And I was like, okay, I have to make the most of this, because like making travel YouTube videos is a lone wolf game, and now suddenly loads of us are in one room, and there's people who've been to countries that I know nothing about, there's people who've done videos that I know nothing about, but to take the time to get to know them, it was like hit and miss, I would say. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to really be, extrovert Tom today, and I like hyped myself up for it. And there was some people who were interesting, and they were really nice and open for conversation, and some people like weren't. And so I kind of retreated. I was like, I did my best.
And that's when you sat on your own?
Yeah, that's when I sat on my own, and I was having vegan currywurst. It was like all catered, and this girl came and sat opposite me, and I remember you were like, Deutsch, English? And I was like, English? And then you were like, oh, what's your name? And I said, Tom. And then here we are, you're sat on my sofa, and that's that.
I actually don't remember what we talked about at all in the beginning. I just remember when we were walking during this tour, and we weren't listening to the guy.
The tour of all the new trains was really interesting. Like, people took a lot of effort to explain the trains in great detail, and it was really nice. But after your 5th train that you've had explained in great detail, it's a bit like, okay, well, we were kind of on a vibe, like chatting, we could just go back to that.
Yeah, and it also was like a different presenter at every train, and some were really good. I remember this one guy from Siemens, he was insane. I was like, I want to buy this train because he did such a great presentation, but some of them weren't as good.
And I remember this exact moment that you said about when we were walking through a corridor, and I was like, so where do you live? And you said the name of a city near to Leipzig, and I was like, oh my god! Like, I normally never bother like making, friends with people, because they're like, well, I live in Cologne, and I'm like, well, see you never. Like, it was nice knowing you. And you actually lived in the east as well. I was like, oh my god, this is fate. This is great.
And I also love traveling to Leipzig because it's such a short ICE ride, and I just love it.
And I think the main factor Enya has already alluded to, which is that once she gets her hooks in you and gets an idea, there's no getting away.
Actually, I have 2 friends who said they never thought that they would still be friends with me, but I'm so persistent. I'm just like, whenever they don't text me back, like after a week or so, I'm like, hello, please text me again.
I think I'm on the other side of that in most relationships, to be honest. Second question. How did you come up with the idea for this project? I'll leave that one with you to kick off again, Enya, your version of events.
My version of events is that I first got in contact with the whole idea of Bedarfshaltestellen when I traveled to my first Bedarfshaltestelle, which I didn't know was a Bedarfshaltestelle.
Wow. And it radicalized you.
Yeah, it was crazy because I visited friends, and then they had this announcement and be like, you have to press the button to get off. And I was like, I'm from Hamburg, so I've never heard that there would be any station where you have to press the button to get off, because everyone needs to be somewhere, and there is always a train station at work. And so I had this term in my head, and I really liked the idea that you would go to these places where no one really cares about, because where those friends of mine lives, it's so nice and it's so beautiful. And I'm just like, why is no one stopping here? It's so nice. And that's when the idea got in my head for the first time. Then I thought about writing a book on this matter in a way, but I never did. So I have the idea, but I never did anything with it. I just remember telling you about those stops because you didn't know that they existed too, or maybe you've experienced.
I've been to one in Switzerland before, but not in Germany.
But you've probably never thought about it as a whole concept. Definitely. And then I just remember, because I have a friend in Leipzig who does music, and he was doing a gig, and I thought like, well, maybe I can just get my whole Leipzig friends summoned to this place. And so I took Tom and a guy from the Deutsche Bahn and got us together in this wonderful, wonderful place in Leipzig. And we had such a great evening and a few beers, just to get to know each other a bit better. And I think that's when we came up with this idea. And I said, like, those places are great. Probably told you the same story that I just did. And then I said, like, maybe we can go there. And I think at this point, I just watched one of Tom's videos, because I didn't know you before that, because I'm not really that deep into this whole like train game, and especially not on YouTube. And then I saw this video where you were traveling with the 9 € ticket, like the furthest possible.
Yeah, the longest 49 euro ticket possible,
And I thought it was so funny. And then I thought, well, he should be able to take on a Bedarfshaltestelle
for this series. I didn't know that.
You didn't know that.
All those hours I spent editing it, I didn't know it was going to get me into this project. Wow.
Yeah, and so I pitched it to you, and then I said, maybe we could do that. And again, so I'm just like, are you free on a Sunday? We can do that. That's my idea of it. But I also was a bit drunk.
Yeah, I know, me too. So I think that is like what you have as like a strength, because you're hartnäckig. How do you say this? Persistent.
Yeah.
Hartnäckig.
Hartnäckig, yeah.
Hartnäckig, yeah.
Dreist, someone would say. Like,
is that a negative version?
Yeah.
Oh, right. You're like a dog with a bone.
Like, you're coming with me and just deciding it for you,
but this was the great thing, because like we made friends at the conference. Then most people who you're like, oh, I'll see you around. Yeah, I'll see you around. You actually don't, even if you would want to. And then, so I was just sat here working one day, and I got a text from you saying, come on a night out with me and my friend to watch some jazz. And I was just like, all right, I literally have no idea what's going on. And I remember asking you,
and
like,
I said, I've already booked your ticket.
Oh, yeah, you bought my ticket to this jazz concert that a friend was playing. And in the end, Yeah, I just remember asking you so many times. I was like, how do you know this guy who's like playing bass? He's like a random guy. I was just like, I don't get it. Because he's younger than us, isn't he?
Yeah,
so
but yeah.
I was like, how do you even know this guy who's playing bass in a jazz band, like to drag me here? Like the whole thing, the maths wasn't making sense in my head. And you was like, oh, I sat next to him on a train once.
No, we knew before that.
Oh, I thought that's how we met.
No.
See, all the times you told me and I didn't listen.
But the whole way how I met him is also so many different connections.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it was tenuous.
But
anyway.
I've never talked to him, I think, until we sat on the same train.
Right.
But I knew him and I've seen him
right.
like before, but just not
But
really
you did
like talking.
sit
Yeah,
next
yeah.
to him on a train
Yeah.
and start talking.
But
to
if
him.
I would explain you how I met him, it's very complicated.
It was. I was just like, okay, fair enough. And then we went to the show, and we were just sat in the audience drinking beers, and then we played table football afterwards. And at some point during the third beer and like the 10th game of table football, we were making a YouTube series together, and it was all like signed, sealed, delivered that we were going to do it. And then, especially at that point, there's usually a break. Like, it doesn't actually happen with most people. Either you never see each other again, 90% of cases, or you see each other that one time, come up with a cool idea, and then you never do it. That's the 99% of cases. But the benefit that I have with being friends with you is that we're in the 1%, and we've actually gone and made 3 episodes of this series now that we came up with while playing drunk table football after a jazz concert. And I remember afterwards we went out with everybody who was in this band, and it had just been my birthday. It was like the week of my 30th birthday. I'd just flown back over and I was still hungover from my birthday, and we went out with all these people and we were doing like shots, and I looked around and I was just like, oh my god, these people are so young. Like everybody who was in the band came and sat down, and I was like, I don't belong here. I was like having my first ever like post-30 crisis because they just looked younger than us. I was like, I don't belong here. And I remember it was someone's birthday, and I have the video of they were all
I
singing.
didn't remember that.
Yeah. You were singing happy birthday to them as well, and I love playing back the video because you can tell how German everyone is when they're like, happy birthday to you, happy birthday. And it just makes me crease up every time. But it was like 2 a.m. and I was like, guys, I have to go, like I have a job. Like, I've got work. It was a great time, and I came back here and fell asleep, probably assuming that the series would never happen, but it did. And I love the idea, request stops, going to niche places. I love the fact that there's already a UK one, which is done by Jeff Marshall, going to all of the least used train stops in each county. So as soon as Enya said it, I just gave you credit for the idea, cut that bit out. So as soon as Enya said it, I was like, okay, I have this as a reference that like he's done the UK version, but he's obviously like really into like the mechanics of the trains and the stations and all of that stuff, which is great, and he's really good at those.
We don't know anything about
but
that.
Our one, we just came out from like a really fun point of view, and as soon as we had done the first one, I was just like, I love it. It's such a great idea. Just, you don't need to fly somewhere exotic. You can just go somewhere nearby that you've never been and have a laugh with your friends, and it will be like a million times as fun and a million times cheaper at the same time. And like, what better message to, you know, send out in the world? And I have loved being a part of it ever since. Next question is, how many request stops are there in Germany? So I think the answer is that we don't know. Nobody knows.
No, I tried to Google it beforehand and also did some intense research, which was ChatGPT basically. And the problem is that this topic is so niche that every train company has like sort of like maps to show those Bedarfshaltestellen, but there is not like a whole database to figure out where those Bedarfshaltestellen are. So we just Google them sometimes, and also we get a lot of recommendations. So everyone who's been leaving a comment and recommending the next Bedarfshaltestelle we go to, there is a list. I started a list because sometimes you're just like, well, I've given in a tip and nothing happens. But as you heard, so I have a whole list of these Bedarfshaltestellen that people recommended, and I hope that we can go to each and every one of them. But it probably will take a bit of time because a lot of people recommended places which are a bit further away, because now we just started like from around here. But so I think there are like a few hundreds. I think there are way more than we thought.
Sorry, I've just noticed how you spelt something in English in the list of questions.
What
the hell is that? Bühler.
It's a French French version. Yeah, I just
Sorry, I was like trying to listen to your deep explanation, but Pitbuller was just calling to me from the laptop screen.
There are so many
Is
Pitbuller.
the Pitbuller in the room with us now? So there's no master list of. I've even asked someone who works for Deutsche Bahn.
Me too. Actually, I've gotten some emails from people who were listening us, and they gave me like some sort of little database. I can give that to you because I don't really understand it, but there might be ways to figure it out. But because there are so many different train companies, or so it's like a huge company and like with so many different places to look after, so probably there is no list yet. Maybe we can do one other.
But I mean, we're just so happy everybody's enjoyed the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
The comments were always really nice, and I think we both had the same anxiety. Like after Otterwisch was such a good premiere, like oh my god, we peaked. The series is so good, and like, will it just be the same if we go to another random town in Germany? And it'll be the same episode again, but it never has been. Like they're all so different, and I'm probably less worried about finding them than I was when we started.
Yeah.
Because I have total faith that. So there's one right next to Otterwisch, the next station.
Oberholz.
Oberholz. And I bet you if we went to that, we could do a whole video, and it would be nothing like the Otterwisch video that we made. I feel like always on the train ride there, because like another week has passed in our lives and we have more to like catch up on, and we're having such a laugh on the train that we almost always miss to press the request stop button. Like we just bring a different energy every single time.
Oh.
And there's slightly different things to see, and we come at them from a slightly different angle every time, and they're way less repetitive than you might have thought they would be. So I think I'm less worried. I used to be like, oh my god, we're gonna have to go and do one like far away soon, like maybe, you know, Saxony-Anhalt or something like far.
Oh my god.
And but I'm not worried about that at all anymore. I think we'll just find them and do them, and they'll be fun.
And actually you can always skip the part where we arrive somewhere, you know, because that's very similar. We go somewhere and then we arrive, but the adventure that starts after we arrived is always very, very different. And also I think that was one of the next questions, if we're going to do some did I spell this one? So the next question would be if we are planning to go abroad with these Bedarfshaltestellen. So I think that the first goal should be Germany in general. I'm not really sure if we could go internationally like so soon, because we have to figure out how the series develops and where to go. But I think there are so many places, especially in the Black Forest, like a lot of people recommended places over there. But also because I'm from Hamburg, I also figured out some which are like in the north of Germany, and I think that would be nice that we should get like some different territory. But of course it takes time, you know, we have like normal jobs, so we have to take the weekend. That's why it all takes a bit longer than we expected. So for a further journey we would have like at least one whole weekend and not just a Sunday.
Yes, I mean, I've been to one in Czech before that was near Prague that had a castle, and I'm like, that would be quite good, but it's just far away and it's more of a time commitment. But I think in terms of will the series go abroad, I don't see why not. Give it like a year of us doing a bunch of these, and
you watching,
and you watching and liking and subscribing and sending it to all your friends, and maybe watching it all the way to the end, like
and your family
3 to 4 times every episode, I would say. And your family, and you know,
my grandma loves it, so
exactly. I think my grandma likes it, even though she watches my YouTube videos without sound on every time, and she just tells me, oh, it looked nice. I love you, grandma. You can't hear this, but I'm saying it. And the series, I think, will go abroad. Like I said, I've been to a couple in Switzerland. I've been to some in Switzerland already. I wonder if there's some in the US. I don't know. They don't really have many train stations anymore. One of them might be a request stop. I'm not really sure. Actually, you know what? I think there is on the line to Maine. I feel like I've been
on the main line.
Next question.
The people. There was one question if we've ever encountered like mean or angry people, which is quite common if you pull out a camera in Germany, you know. Oh no. Well, I think we should just get professional.
We've got a combined like 50 something years of experience, and we're not professional, so I don't know when it's coming.
Yeah.
You right? Next question. Have you encountered any angry papula while filming? I think this was meant to be, has anyone ever been angry towards you while you're filming, because you're in Germany with a camera, and Germany is famous for being anti-camera. I spoke about this on my channel once, where I had a story where I was out with my friend Justine and we were treated like we were walking around with a gun for having a camera. I feel like it's particularly an East German thing. Fear of the supervision, because there's a couple of YouTubers I watch who, both of whom made one trip to Leipzig and have been yelled at for having a camera out.
Really?
So I would say it's definitely a stereotype in Germany. That's probably why people have asked, have you ever encountered angry people while filming? But so far, we've had very good luck with the strangers that we've met, haven't we?
We have, because at the first stop at Otterwisch that we went to, there was actually an elderly woman who had a camera on her own, and so she wasn't confused why we brought a camera over there. And we had a little talk. She didn't have any social media, so we couldn't see her photos, but she came out there to take photos on her own. And so she was really nice. And I think you already said this in the Otterwisch video. We met mostly older people, which are probably not used to see a camera or be in front of a camera. And they all were very, very nice. And actually, last week was the first time that someone asked us what we were doing. The first time everyone was just like, okay, they have a camera, so it's fine. And when I was asking those kids if we can go sledding with them, I was already worried that someone's going to say, well, just don't film the kids and, take care and everything. And I mean, we try not to put the camera in the kids' face.
They did jump into the shot and the parents didn't say anything about it,
So they are all very nice, but I think that's something that just happens when you're, out in those areas where everyone is probably just happy that there's someone they don't know, and then they can talk about it forever.
Yeah, it's very different to like big city vibes where people are more suspicious. I think when you're out in the sticks where we've been, people are like, someone came to my town. Oh my God, wow, what are they here? They're taking pictures of this town where I walk through every day and is boring to me now. And outsiders are finding it exciting. I particularly thought that when we were in Paulinszeller at the sort of fallen down abbey that had a Christmas market inside, where there was like all of these old people and their children there. It was just basically the old people and the grandchildren of the community, wasn't it?
And us.
And us, the only ones in the middle. And I thought, wow, they must love that like two millennials are here with cameras making social media content in this place where that kind of thing probably doesn't really
I'm
happen.
not really sure that they got that we were doing social media content.
Well,
they just accepted that we were there with the camera.
Accepted that two weirdos were there with a camera and they didn't find it weird, and I thought that was quite nice. That made me smile, considering some of the reception that you sometimes get in cities is a bit harsher. No, I would say we haven't encountered any angry pepule.
The pepule were very, very nice. So you can go to Bedarfshaltestellen and find some friendly pepule.
Well, the series even started with extrovert Enya asking people on the train about Otterwisch, the very first episode, and they're like, oh yeah, you should go there, there's even a castle, all of this. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't think people would be reacting this way. But you basically drummed up some good spirit within like the first 30 seconds of the video, which is a very Enya thing, very extrovert Enya thing.
It's probably because I seem very harmless in general.
Yeah, you diffuse the situation really well, like going up to parents and being like, can I sled with your children? Next question, how long does a video take? Was this how long does it take to edit?
I think like the whole process in general.
The process is Saturday night at about 11:30, me and Enya like, where are we going? And then one of us sends the name of a stop. Enya looks at it on the Deutsche Bahn timetables and says, meet me at Erfurt or Leipzig Hauptbahnhof at 10 or 9 or 8:30 or whatever it is. I say yes, and then I go to sleep. So the pre-production is, about 2 minutes, I would say.
Yeah.
Then production is an entire day because we go hard, we go full on, and we shoot as much as humanly possible, and we have the best time. But production is like a whole day. And then editing, it's really weird. It's like 0 seconds. I just go back to my normal life, and then one day the video appears on the internet. It's wild, really. It's so nice. It's the fastest editing process
I wish I could say the same.
Been involved with, because I just sort of come home and I go to sleep. I live my life, and then a few days later the video just shows up on my doorstep like a baby in a basket floating down a river. So the editing takes 0 seconds, I would say. What would you say about it?
So, well, for me it takes a bit longer, I'd say. So I think after every shooting day I have about like 2 to 2.5 hours of raw material that we've been shooting. It's actually always nearly the same amount of time that we're shooting, because sometimes, of course, we get lazy during the shoot and be like, okay, we don't need the microphone and we'll just take some surrounding shots. And before I start editing, I have some ideas in my head throughout the video, like on the shooting day, which I try to explain to Tom, but he usually doesn't get it. And I'm just like, can't you see, like, this looks like this series or this moment? And in 100% of the cases, he didn't watch the series, he didn't see the movie, he didn't know this artist or something. So it's just like, okay, well, I'll just keep my ideas to myself and just show him when they're done. And then I start importing all these videos and put them in like one long line and go through them and be like, okay, I don't need this, I don't need that. And in the beginning, I'm always like, oh my God, how am I going to be able to shorten this to 15 minutes? There's so much good and so much funny stuff happening, mostly on my side, of course, but I try to get Tom through. No, you have your moments.
Wow, I've just been upgraded. I have to having my moments. Haven't been on such a high level in so long.
Well, and then I have my first cut, which is like, I'd say like 30 minutes. And then I'm just like, okay, I can't cut anymore. And then it goes on and it goes on. And then I have like 17 minutes, I'd say. And then I start editing in the jokes or the things that I saw, which Tom didn't see during the process. And yeah, and then it all comes together. But I think it takes about, I'd say like 2 days. So around like 12 hours in general. I mean, 2 days have 48 hours, but I can't really work on it for like 12 hours straight. So it's mostly like 5 to 6 hours here, 5 to 6 hours there. And then I'll send it to Tom and hopefully he will say, it's great. And then we'll release it. But of course, I have to find the time to do this, because I have other stuff.
Really? You're not just my bedarfshaltestelle slave of editing forever. You actually have things to do.
I actually have
outside
things
of spending
to do.
time with me. It's really weird now having a Sunday without seeing you.
Yeah, it's really
horrible.
Because last Sunday was the first Sunday we didn't do an episode. I mean, we did like 2 weeks in a row, and then it was like tradition.
It's a routine now, yeah.
And then on Sunday the weather was so great, and I was in Regensburg with a friend, and I was just like, I mean, we could have done a great episode. Well. But some things take time. That's why we hope that those videos, hopefully we can do this kind of setting again so that we have something to fill in the gaps, because of course we're not able to see each other like every week or every 2 weeks. I mean, Tom has
Sometimes
the time, I know.
Ask you if you're okay and you have to say okay when you're not.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
I think if we would do some every week, we would get so tired. So I think it's good to have like 2 in a row and then a bit of a break. I hope you agree.
No, I think it's. I think you're exactly right, and you work very hard on them. And when I see them for the first time, I'm like, damn, it's quite amazing what you perform in the editing suite. It's amazing.
Yeah, but sometimes it's hard because I really have to get into the mood, because I don't want to do this project that I do with so much heart, and so it's so much fun, but I also don't want to lose this kind of fun during the editing process. So I only edit when I really feel like it and be like, okay, I have this creative ideas and I'm happy with everything that I do. This sometimes leads to like 1 or 2 days delay that I can start because I really want to have nothing else to do and just sit there until 2 in the morning, don't sleep, and then do the next episode.
Our last question is, what was the greatest moment so far? So 3 episodes are out so far. What is the greatest moment from them for you?
You can start if you have one ready.
The one that I was going to say is about the old lady and her husband.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to tell the story?
No, you can.
So in the one... Oh, it's from the one that isn't out yet. But from the 4th episode, when that's out, if you've seen that, at the time that this video comes out, the 4th episode where we went to Reinhardsbrunn Friedrichsroda, this town with the cave, and with where we went up a hill, and I didn't want to, but Enya made me. She said, I won't get my 10% if I don't make it up the hill, so I went. So when we went into that guest house and we were having chips, these old people came and sat behind us, and the waiter was this really nice guy who we'd sort of bonded with a little bit when he came to take our order, because he was like kind of cheeky and he was like trying to sell us stuff. He was like, oh, we have Glühwein, like if you're interested in all of this, and he was cracking jokes and we were cracking jokes, and the vibes were just amazing between us and this waiter. And you were speaking Arabic to him, and I was like, what is he?
But then he left.
Yeah, I know, he didn't stay to listen. He was just like,
so bad.
Less of this lady. He was from Syria though, and as soon as Enya said a sentence in Arabic, he was just like, I've had enough of you too.
Because he figured out that I'm not really good at it.
Yeah, but he was just a really nice guy, and we were like, all right, let's have our chips. But everything was good. The vibes were good, I would say. And these old people came and sat behind us. One lady came in to join them. This waiter came over to see her. As she was like putting her coat on the back of her chair just before sitting down, he just put one hand on her arm and the other one on like the back of her neck, like the back of her head or the top of her back. And he just goes to her in German. He was like, he was such a lovely man. He was such a nice man. And everyone here really liked him. He was just great. And me and Enya caught each other's eyes immediately, and we were like, oh no. her husband's just died. And the waiter is like consoling her. And then she didn't say anything. She was just like, and she just sort of sat down and started talking to her friends. And they were talking obviously about the late husband. And she was like showing them pictures, wasn't she? And they were all sat around talking about him. And it was just this lovely moment. One, that like she has this friend group to go to and speak about these things. Like she's experienced this loss and that's really hard. And two, that she has this relationship with this waiter, that obviously her and the husband used to go there so often in this little town to this one guest house to have beer and food and whatever, that the waiter remembers him, remembers her, and has a good enough relationship to actually go and like physically touch her, which like in, you know, cold frosty countries like Germany, you don't really see that often, these types of relationships, especially to get to witness it in someone else's life, this like moment of real warmth and humanity. And I found it so moving, and me and Enya were just like looking into each other's eyes like, no, oh my god, our husband's died, that's so sad. But we got to witness this sort of this moment of humanity between two strangers, and it was awful but nice at the same time.
And also I think the third thing about this situation was it was happening like behind your back. So I was sitting there looking at these photos and being completely sad. And the first thing you said to me after I said, okay, I think it's a funeral, we caught this moment, was like, oh, I can just imagine them coming here every Saturday for like 20 years, always getting the same order. And that was the same thing that was happening in my head, that I saw this couple going up this hill, which is quite steep, I think, for someone in there. I think she was like 70 or 80, which is quite rough. And then, you know, they always... what is it? Belohnen?
Reward?
Yeah, and then they always reward themselves with some...
But I passed.
And then they always reward themselves with some food and chat with the waiter. And this whole scenery that was happening inside my head was happening in your head too. And then we just shared this moment of grieving about a person that we never knew.
We're both disgusting empaths.
Yeah.
It has a deep impact on our emotional state, seeing other people suffer.
It was really hard after that to sort of keep the energy high, because this whole day was a bit stressful. We didn't eat enough. We got lost in the woods. It was quite...
spend the whole day with Enya. It was just the worst.
It was so stressful.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah, and after that, we were just thinking about life a bit more than we did before.
Yeah, definitely.
And I keep coming back to this moment. I really think about this
I've
lady
told
a lot.
About
I've told everyone about it. I was willing to listen afterwards.
Please tell me again about the waiter who touched the lady's arm and you started crying. Tell me that one again from the top. What's another great favorite moment that you have from the series? A happy one, maybe. It was happy that they had this love for each other. That was what was happy about it, even if it was a sad situation.
I think there were many happy moments, but I just remember on the first train to Otterwisch, this guy who really wanted to get into the conversation because it was the first time we've been doing this, and I was just like, okay, maybe we can just ask someone from around here if they have any recommendations. And then we asked him, and he was like a bit confused that we would ask him, because I turned over and was like, hey, can I ask you a question? And he looked at me like, no. And then I asked him this question, and he sort of lit up and was so nice and friendly. And then there was one other guy sitting a bit further away, and he was like, you know, getting up in his seat and being like, I want to be involved. And so finally he took the courage, and he gave us like a whole recommendation for everything around this place, and was like was recommending Oberholz, I think. And he was so nice, and I think that was such a nice moment to see all of these people change their whole behavior, because they were just, you know, on their train, probably getting back from work or getting back home. That was such a nice moment, and I love these moments when, I mean, it's basically a bit similar to the other moments that we had, that it is connecting so many people who don't have anything to do with each other for a quick moment of warmth and human being.
And I think when you do take it back to the idea and sort of the goal of the thing, to show, just go to niche places that nobody's ever heard of with your friend and like have a good time and share good vibes and make good memories together. I think that hopefully shows like what a success it is. Not only there's the moments in the video, but there's also the moments that we have. Like I said to you last time, I'm so lucky that I get to see and hear all of the things that you say in a day. And there's some jokes that you make where I wasn't filming and I'm like, oh my God, we're out shooting. But that joke actually stays with me. Like I'm the only one who will ever laugh at that. And maybe
because some of it is inappropriate.
Well, some of it we would be cutting even if it was filmed. But no, I think there's so many moments on and off screen that just make it so worthwhile and make me so happy and make me feel like it was such a good idea. And hopefully that inspires some other people to go and do the same. I know, like, we've got comments of people who are like, oh, I've been to Otterwisch since, or like, I've been to Neukirchenwöhr since. And that, I think that makes me really happy. But in terms of other good moments, the first episode, I think the funniest part is you dreaming about the stone lion at the end. That's my favourite joke, where we're on the train and I'm like dreaming about something actually fun, and Enya's like looking back at this adventure, and I think it's the stone lion, which was like not funny at all, but that joke, like,
very funny.
Yeah, that always makes me laugh. The thing when I show people the second one that they laugh at is me taking the question about the entrance literally. Where we're looking at a model in a museum, but it's of the building that we're in, the model. And then you're like, where did we come in? And I point to the room and the door in the room. I'm like, we came in through there, like in the museum. And then he's like, no, on the model, where did we come in? To the whole building. And it's just me taking things literally. And I think people who know me in real life will be like, I've lived that moment with him 1,000 times. And my favourite bit from the third one is where I tell you what a level crossing is called in English, and you're like, oh, so you can get a level up. And that's one thing I would say, like, I did this whole thing on my Patreon about how much I enjoy making these series and how good your like creative energy is, and I left out the main part, which is that you do this in a second language, which is absolutely mental. And like must dial in the amount of like mental fatigue like 10 times what I experience, even though I have to deal with you all day, so the mental fatigue is pretty bad. But you do all of this in like a second language, and so I said level crossing and you immediately were like Mario Kart immediately, and you could obviously hear the joke. You not only made the joke, but you could obviously see in your head the part in the video where you put the sound effects, and that whole interaction came together so well for me in the third episode. I really liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so tired after these shootings, because then I
too,
get back home and talk German and be like, ugh, and then I'm missing like every word from every language.
Yeah.
I think I would learn English a lot faster if I would only do puns the whole day. So much pun. Yeah, that was a bad one. The one that I love most about the third video is when you're saying, I'm not climbing up this, and then you do it like, no, I'm not going up there, and then you do it, and it's just something that I imagine you doing in your head a whole lot of time, being like, no, I can't do this, and you just proceed to doing.
That's just like the male monkey brain, like, oh, I can't be seen to back down from a challenge. But then I did. If you saw like the space to put your feet on the top, it was not like wide enough to like.
But I love that you can't see it from the side. It just looks like.
I know. Yeah. I was like, I'm not putting my foot on that. My word.
I laugh the most, Home Alone with during the editing, because for the last episode you didn't see that yet, but I did a little Western.
Of course,
shootout
with the playground. Yeah.
And I researched sounds so long and just kept on laughing. It's just a great project.
Yeah, I feel very blessed to have it.
And that's it. So if you want to just stay on this channel, and if you have any other questions that we maybe didn't mention in this first Q&A video on this whole project, just write them in the comments. Write them via email, send them over Instagram, do whatever you want. Just get them back to us. So we would love to get some more questions from you, and also keep those recommendations for Bedarfsseite stellen coming, because we enjoy doing this series and we have big plans. So if you join now, you will.
The big plans. I was hoping
we have a lot of big plans.
Me being allowed to sleep? Maybe?
No,
okay,
we're not sleeping. We have big plans for this channel.
This is the first I'm hearing that.
So stay here and tell everyone about it, because then you will be the person who recommended this gigantic idea.
That's true. Be the one who makes a friend group viral in your friend group.
And go to the Bedarfsseite stellen, and if you go there, send us photos. Maybe take your family.
But thank you so much for watching them so far. It's been such a joy having this project with Enya, and we're very grateful for your nice feedback about it. If you'd like to see us talk a little bit more about it, there's also a link in the description where we're continuing this conversation in like a longer form if this whole video wasn't enough for you, which I imagine. But if this video wasn't enough for you, we're also continuing it in a longer form with a link in the description. So go ahead and click on that if you want more yap time. This and yap.
This and yap.
Thank you so much.
See you. Bye.